Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with The Last Huntsman Outdoors here. Now guys, this is a knife that I have been following for some time. I've seen it a little while ago, seen the original prototype, and this knife is the Reiff Knives Vicon. This is kind of their first, what they would consider kind of more tactical combat field knife. I am super excited to get using this guy. This is actually first time out in the woods with it. I'm just going to give a review as I use it. Let's see what we think on it. Alright guys, here we have the Reiff Knives Vicon. This is a knife, like I've been saying, is one that I've really been looking forward to. This one has their kind of tan PVD coating on it. It's in Magna Cut steel. They have all kinds of different color variations on this. This one is rocking G10 textured scales. They also have some that has micarta as well. They have just a whole different variety of colors and material, at least handle materials and colors for blades and stuff. Guys, this has right around a 5-inch blade, 3/16 thick. Got some jimping there. Man, this is an awesome blade, like right off the bat. It's kind of that 5-inch, kind of what I would consider combat utility knife, which honestly is one of my favorite genres of knives. And so when I seen this knife almost a year ago in prototype, I knew I had to have one. Just to kind of throw a couple comparisons to it. Here's the Work Tough Gear Red Wolf. Another great choice, right at about the same size as the Red Wolf. So if you like the Red Wolf sizing, the Vicon's definitely an option there. And here's the Stoner MS5, right around the same blade length, just a little bit shorter handle. So much broader blade on the Stoner though. But let's get using this knife. All right, as usual, we're going to go ahead and start off with batoning. This has a PVD finish. They got some that's just straight satin finish too. I just thought that kind of goldish tan and green kind of combo would be kind of cool. Let's just do some batoning here. Gotta make that finish look the part, right? Now this is a 5-inch blade, right at about 3/16 thick. So it's not gonna be some like super batoner by no means, but for like camp and, you know, utility task, it should be able to do the job. This is a pretty naughty little piece here. Let's go ahead and try it out. This is in Magna Cut steel as well, which I have no doubt it's gonna hold up just fine. Magna Cut is a great steel even for hard use stuff. And this thing's actually batoning really good. It has a high saber grind, which, thank you very much, Reiff. That's probably one of my favorite overall grinds, especially for this size of knife. I really like it. For smaller knives, I kind of like a full flat. But guys, this thing's holding up just like a champion for batoning. Actually, this thing's so fun to baton. I got a couple more logs. Let's just go ahead and do them too. Does have a bit of a swedge, but it's not like a sharpened swedge or anything like that. Now, like I said, this is kind of their combat utility knife, is kind of what they intended this for. One more little piece here. I'll have to cut up some more logs later. Holding up just fine and putting a lot of character to that PVD coating for sure. Guys, so one thing I'm going to do here with the Vicon is this is not a chopping knife by no means. It's what I would consider the kind of that combat utility kind of camp belt knife size. However, we're just going to test it out. Do just a little bit of light chopping here, and that's about all you're going to do with this knife, in all honesty, is if you just have to do some light little delimbing type of stuff and just popping some branches off or trying to clear a few things, but that's about it. It's not going to be like a heavy chopper. It's not meant for that. But of course, being on my channel, we like to kind of test everything. But yeah, it can do just some light little stuff, but you know, obviously just the design of the blade, it's not meant to be like a heavy chopper by no means. All right guys, I'm gonna do some feather sticks here with the Reiff Knives Vicon. This is the first time me getting this out here and doing some feathers with it, but guys, this thing is actually very slicey. This is honestly, for one of the bigger Reiff knives, this is probably the sliciest one that I've gotten from them thus far. I've had the F6, I've had the F5, and I'm just gonna say it, guys, this is probably the sliciest one I've had out of all these. I'm very impressed with this, quite honestly. And I will say too, I am not like the best be-all feather sticker guy out there. There's guys that are a lot better at it than I am even. However, I can make a pretty good jab at it too when I need to. And this knife is just doing it good. Now, I've said it before, feather sticks is kind of a three-part equation, really. One part is skill, the person, one part is the knife, and one part is the wood itself. And sometimes, you know, cedar is kind of, I'm using cedar right here, and cedar is kind of a weird one because sometimes it can be really easy to do really great feather sticks, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass to do feather sticks with. And a lot of times it's just because it's so knotty. And sometimes too, it's just, at least cedars here in central Missouri can also be very like warped, like the just overall shape on it. So trying to find like a good straight piece of it ain't exactly the easiest. Like there's hardly no trees around this area that grows just straight. Like even pine trees, they just bush out really far or very wide. But yeah, this thing actually does really good feather sticks. I'm very impressed with the Reiff Knives Vicon. All right, while I have my feather stick bundle here, I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a little fire going. I'm not gonna get a full big fire going. It's like 90 degrees with 90% humidity. Guys, I am so sick and tired of summer. I'm too white Northern European ancestry for this crap. I'm ready for winter already, but I'm gonna use feels like a sharp spine section right there past the jimping. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to scrape some fat wood here. It's actually doing pretty good with the scraping. Okay, got me a good little scrape bundle, and I got my hexagonal Uberleben fire steel. And here we go, we got fire going real quick. So yeah, the Vicon, even though it's more of like a combat utility knife, this thing actually strikes a ferro rod really good. I'm actually pretty impressed with that. And this one's even coated too, which is really cool. All right, I'm gonna use the Reiff Vicon here, do some notches, and I'm gonna do some cross grain batoning here. Kind of really test that magna cut out. Get me a little square notch going here. Did have to do it right in the middle of a knot. Usually that pops right out of there. And a little tent stake type of notch going. Perfect. And this knife is actually very surprisingly slicey. We'll talk about that later. Let's do some cross grain batoning. Oh yeah, this thing's just acting like a killdozer, going right through it. And the edge is just fine. Doing the cross grain batoning is honestly, I think, one of the hardest tests you can do on a knife. That's just not like outright abusive. And I would actually even consider this a little abusive. It puts all the pressure on the edge, unlike regular batoning, which is just mostly kind of riding along. And so a lot of your like too thin edge knives and or just not properly heat treated knives sometimes will chip out and or warp. They'll get like bacon edge. But guys, this Vicon is built solid and I'm quite impressed with it. All right guys, I'm gonna do one of my common tests here. I'm just gonna do the Ninja Death Grip and just gonna do some slicing and kind of talk about it. So right off the bat, as you guys can see, this knife is actually very surprisingly slicey. I mentioned it earlier, but I think this Vicon is actually more slicey. Sorry, I'm sweating miserably out here. I think this Vicon is actually more slicey than both the F6 and the F5 that I've shown on this channel. This thing just glides right through that wood. The handle ergonomics is actually absolutely perfect. I love these handle ergonomics. This is the G10 version, and generally I like micarta better. However, I'm perfectly happy with these G10. They have a lot of texture on them. They're not like overly textured, and so my hand don't want to like slide off or anything like that. So guys, this knife is just honestly so perfect. This year has been a great year for knives for me, honestly. It's actually, I've had some of my favorite knives come out this year, and or knives that I've just reviewed this year has all just been great. And I'm a big fan of like the kind of combat utility knives. They're honestly some of my favorite knives. It's just that genre of knives, and this Vicon is just really awesome. Now it does have a deep guard on there for the little combatives portion. We'll talk about that a little bit more. However, I personally find that I like a deep guard like that, even for like bushcrafting and slicing and stuff. And it's just because like that guard lets you know exactly where the edge is, and so you can just use the guard to kind of guide yourself. And I personally like that for a combative type of scenario. That's actually a really good thing. But even just for, you know, whittling and slicing and stuff like that, I find it's pretty nice. I think some knives, sometimes they try to achieve ergonomics so well that it almost just feels like you're handling like a broom handle. And so your edge can just kind of not really index that well. But man, this knife is just such a fun knife to use. Man, I'm very impressed with this knife. I like a lot of knives, guys, but honestly, this is probably one of my favorite knives I've used thus far this year. It's just a fun knife to use. And of course, it makes a good vampire sticker. All right, guys, another thing we're going to talk about here is the sheath for the Reiff Vicon. Now, I've had several Reiffs, but guys, I honestly think this is probably one of the best executed sheaths that they've done thus far with Reiff. It's a pancake style sheath, decent retention. I mean, it's not coming out of there. Just a little bit of wobble. However, it does have an adjustable lock here, so you can tighten that up and probably take the little bit of wobble out of it. The belt mechanism is just kind of a fold over Kydex clip, which I do like the aspect that it can easily clip right onto my belt without me having to take my belt off. Absolutely love that. So we'll kind of test that out long term and see how that holds up, because sometimes I've had these Kydex kind of just loops break on me, or I actually had one break on me one time when I was in a Humvee. I was getting out and like it got caught and just ripped it right off. But this one actually seems very well constructed and stuff, and so the sheath I think goes great with the Vicon, and of course with the attachment points and everything. You could pretty much put whatever kind of belt attachment you want on this thing. All right guys, so obviously the Reiff Knives Vicon, let's just cut past the crap here. This is meant to be a combat utility knife. I'm pretty sure, I will correct myself in the comments below if I'm wrong, but this was designed by a Navy SEAL. I can't remember the guy's name or anything like that. But guys, this has like a deep guard, a lot of traction, I mean a clip point. It's meant to be like a combat utility knife. So let's do some combat utility type of stuff. So it's very fast in hand. Let's just do some reverse grip and strikes. Guys, this is a very fun knife to use. And if I was still in the Marines or doing my Minuteman type of stuff, I would gladly rock this knife out. This knife, that kind of 5.5, 6-inch blade is kind of what I would argue is kind of like that perfect size for like a combat utility knife. It's not too big. It's not going to impede upon like your battle rattle rifle, all that good stuff. But at the same time, it's big enough that it can do some serious damage. It can hit some vital organs, sever, you know, just be nasty in general. And it's very comfortable out here in the woods too. All right, another thing I'm gonna do here with the Reiff Vicon is I'm just gonna make me a quick little steak here. Usually I use a little bit bigger knife or hatchet, axe, whatever. However, this knife has just enough choppiness to it, and you know, it's not a chopping knife, but has just enough to it that I can make this work, get kind of a general shape, and then get a good little steak going. This is a very fun knife to use. All right guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the review here of the Reiff Knives Vicon. So short and simple here, I absolutely love this knife. This knife has honestly been one of my favorite knives this year, and I've been waiting for this knife for a while, and guys, this knife has totally impressed me. Now, Reiff Knives they're not cheap, okay? Let's just kind of get that out of the way. However, the fit, finish, and quality, and just what you get with the Reiff Knives, and just the lifetime forever warranty that they have is absolutely amazing. If you guys are wanting like one of those like top tier knives that, you know, your grandchildren will inherit, check out Reiff Knives for sure. The Vicon, honestly, out of all the Reiff Knives that I have tested, I think the Vicon is seriously my favorite one that I've gotten. I'm just super impressed with it. The ergonomics is freaking perfect. I like the style. I like that combat utility style knife. It's honestly one of my favorites. The PVD coating on here, you know, it's scuffed up a little bit from use, but I think that just makes it look that much more awesome. Guys, this knife I highly recommend it. I am quite a fan of this blade, and this knife will be getting a part 2 review, like without a doubt. I absolutely love the just aesthetics of it. It feels great in hand, and honestly, this is probably going to be one of my main field knives for when I'm out doing the like Minuteman preparedness type of stuff. So if you guys are like looking for that, you know, Grail forever knife and that good old Magna Cut steel, and just want something that's built like a tank and still can do a lot of your woods stuff just fine, check out the Reiff Knives Vicon. And as always, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless, and carry on.